into the bullpen while the Mariners were in New York. They made a trade. Mike Baumann of the Orioles was DFA'd by Baltimore earlier this week, and the Mariners swing a trade for him. They acquire Michael Perez alongside him, a minor league catcher, and they send AAA catcher Blake Hunt to Baltimore. They had to make a move like this. You and I have talked about for episodes here that just watching the bullpen, it didn't feel comfortable. Leads didn't feel comfortable. It didn't feel like there were enough leverage, enough leverage arms. Didn't feel like there was enough good stuff in the bullpen. And it just kind of made you feel a little bit nervous with the bullpen, either trying to keep a game close or hold a lead. And Jerry went out and made his first transaction. He made another one today, claiming a guy off waivers. But Baumann traded from the Orioles yesterday. Good stuff. Not a whole lot of control. Not a whole lot of strikeouts and a lot of walks.
The other move they made today, just very quickly, they claimed Eduardo Salazar off waivers from the Dodgers. The Mariners DFA'd Sammy Peralta as a result, who was down in AAA. That was the other move. Yeah, the more highlight of the two is making the trade for Mike Baumann, who throws a pretty firm fastball, has a good slider. The key for him is similar to somebody like Ryan Stanek. He's going to have to be in the zone.
Yeah, in the zone. He's the difference between him and Stanek is Stanek at least still maintains a high strikeout rate, and you and I both believe Stanek has elite stuff. I think Baumann has good stuff. Fangraphs grades him out. His fastball's above average, his sliders about average, his changeup is below average, and his knuckle curve's his best pitch with a stuff plus of 121, making it 21% better than league average. And his percentages of how he throws those pitches are as accordingly. Fastball's the most. He throws his knuckle curve nearly 30% of the time. I don't know if there's like a pitch mix thing the Mariners see. He had his debut today. He was not very good. Didn't even make it through a whole inning. Walked a couple of batters and wasn't particularly in the strike zone a whole lot. I think the Mariners hope that he throws in and around the strike zone. He's just sort of like, as an Oriole, this has been his profile. He's walked a lot of guys and he's not struck a whole lot of guys out. So, like, as a pitcher, that's the worst combination you can have. Not striking guys out, allowing a lot of guys on base, and it's reflective in his fielding independent pitching, his expected fielding independent pitching. It's pretty high. But at this rate, where the bullpen is, the Mariners can't really afford to pick and choose unless they're really willing to overpay for someone they deem as an elite bullpen arm. That wouldn't really fall in line with much of what Justin Hollander and Jerry Dipoto have done in their time here in Seattle. They're not one to go out and get marquee names in the bullpen because they just don't feel like it's worth it. That's why Ryan Stanek was maybe not a surprise, but it was out of line from what they normally do adding to this bullpen. Baumann's more like the guys they add to this bullpen, and hopefully they see something in his repertoire that they can use to their advantage.
Gregory Santos was a household name too, but usually they don't go out and make moves like that.
Right.
Which,
well, he had only been in the big leagues for one. I was maybe thinking of a more veteran one, if I would be more specific.
Veteran, yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of, we talked about it at the time, and I'm sure we'll get back into this when Santos eventually gets back on the field, but just, I think the Mariners really like Gregory Santos because to go out and get an arm like that, they don't usually do, who's so good and already established himself as such a good big league reliever. But anyway, more about Baumann. There are things to like about him. He doesn't get hit very hard. This year he's not getting hit very hard. That's something that I'm sure stood out in the Mariners profile. His barrel rate's in the 90th percentile. X-slug favors him very, very well. So there are pieces of his game that are right now thriving. So I'm sure that popped off the Mariners, or that I'm sure that popped off the charts to the Mariners a little bit. And I'm sure there's things internally they like about Baumann too. I bet you they like his slider a bit. I'm sure there's something about his pitch mix that they see and say, we can work with this. Because usually the Mariners don't acquire guys who have issues with walks. What's their whole philosophy? Everybody knows it, right? Dominate the zone. They like guys who are going to throw a lot of strikes, first pitch strikes, be around the strike zone. Baumann hasn't really done that. But between not getting hit hard, having a couple pitches that do seem to play, having a fastball that can sit 96, 97, I think there's something here the Mariners are saying, yeah, we can work with. Paired with, to your point, the trade market's not heating up yet. The Mariners need bullpen arms right now, and there are not Ryan Helsleys out there right now available for trade. It's May 23rd when we're recording this. So the Mariners have to make do with what's available right now. And if they still need bullpen help come closer to the deadline, you may see some more household names get brought in here. But for now, this is the best they've got.
Ryan Helsley, if you're available, blink twice and I'll send a down payment over to St. Louis. Please. Thank you. Here's the interesting thing. Here's how I kind of frame this when I was looking at his heat charts too. He pitches like and has the arsenal of a strikeout pitcher, yet the execution of it is just not there. Like he throws a four-seam fastball that pitches on the top rail of the strike zone. Throws a knuckle curve that, aims low in the zone / out of the zone. And yet there's no results for the strikeouts, which is odd. If that's what you're trying to do and you're not achieving it, and that just opens you up to other things, because that means the ball's getting put in play. And we know about four-seam fastballs, right? If you're not swinging and missing at a four-seam fastball, that's the most likely pitch to get hit for damage. And that the results of his reflect that. His fastball's got hammered every year of his career. He has not been able to get much swing and miss on that pitch, and yet he throws that pitch about half the time on the top rail of the strike zone. I don't know if there's an adjustment tweak there. I know the Mariners in the last couple of years especially have really, really bought into throwing more sinkers, keeping the ball on the ground, keeping it away from damage areas, and letting the fielders take care of whatever you can't strike out, especially in the bullpen. Remember the 2021 bullpen, the first sort of quote-unquote ragtag group they brought together of Casey Sadler, Drew Steckenrider, and Paul Sewald. They all threw, well, Sadler was a sinker roller, but Steckenrider and Sewald, two of the high leverage arms in that bullpen, four-seam fastballs top of the strike zone, attack, strikeout at the top. But then as it's evolved, right, have Andres Munoz with a sinker, Gabe Spire with a sinker, Taylor Saucedo with a sinker. I think Thornton throws a sinker, right? He throws a sinker.
Gregory Santos certainly throws a sinker.
Santos throws a sinker too. Like, it's a definite philosophical change. Stanek doesn't throw a sinker, but again, he's a veteran, so not expecting him as much to just pick up a sinker in his 30s. Mm-hmm. But Baumann could be different. He could keep his four-seam fastball, or he could switch up his arsenal. I'm not totally sure. It would be strange to see someone's arsenal change in season. That's not very normal, but nothing's unexpected.
I think his fastball has some decent rise to it too, or in nerd terms, induced vertical break. So maybe that's something the Mariners like and feel like it's something they can work with. But yeah, Baumann has a profile that said, look, there are things to like about him. And for where the Mariners are at right now, they needed to do something. So I'm glad they did something. Although, it doesn't seem like everyone was thrilled about it. Some people seemed less than thrilled about the idea of giving up Blake Hunt, which I understand the guy's going off in AAA. But I'd just like to remind people, we talk about the PCL being just a bandbox of a hitter's league all the time. And listen, we love Brian O'Keefe. He was awesome when we got to talk to him last year. But Brian O'Keefe put up about an 840 OPS in AAA last year, and it didn't exactly translate to the big leagues. So I know Blake Hunt's younger. He's currently OPSing over 900, but it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to come up and be a Danny Jansen number 2 type catcher in his prime.
Yeah, and was Blake Hunt even, was he over Harry Ford, the organizational depth chart? Maybe, barely. But could you argue?
Right, this second, you mean?
This second, yes. But if we get to August, is he still?
I don't know.
I know we're talking about Harry Ford later in the episode. That dude is currently doing things that most would consider illegal in AA to the baseball. Yeah. He has been that good at the plate. So thinking about it in that terms, was the difference there really that much? To be determined. We don't know how Harry would hit in AA, but right. It didn't feel like, if the Mariners truly thought Blake Hunt was better than Sebi Savala and he would be better served on the big league roster, then he'd be out in the big leagues.
Correct.
Pretty quickly.
I have one last note on that topic before we move on to our next subject. Because Blake Hunt's gone, I don't make many demands to a front office on this podcast. Now I've got one.
Oh, boy.
The Mariners better start playing Matt Scheffler, and that's all I have to say. Now that Blake Hunt's gone, door's been opened, get him behind the plate, and let him play. So, for those who don't know, Matt Scheffler, who's a catcher in AAA, longtime friend of mine, grew up playing Little League, high school together, and he was our first player to ever be on the podcast. So, with that, start playing him. If you're a Marine Layer Pod fan, you're a Matt Scheffler fan, and I'm putting that notice out there to everybody listening. So, if you're listening to this, get on the hype train and start telling the people, play Matt Scheffler, because now with Blake Hunt gone, why not? Like, Michael Papierski's not hitting at all in AAA. They just acquired Michael Perez, who's like a 30-year-old with a little bit of big league time, who's also not hitting in AAA. Let Chef start playing and give him his time. That's all I've got to say.
Start a chant, let Chef cook. Let Chef cook.
That's what I'm saying. Let him start playing. The 2 games he's played in so far, he had 2 great games at the plate, and he's also known for being a very good defensive catcher. So Mariners need a new AAA catcher, new main guy. Let it be him. That's my demand. I don't demand many things out of the Mariners front office, but that's my demand.
You have my endorsement.
Yeah. And again, if you're a Marine Layer Pod fan, you're a Matt Scheffler fan. So get on board, people. That's all we've got to say. Start endorsing it like we are.